As she mentioned, I am JoAnn Pushkin from DenseBreast-info. Many of you know that my own story of a missed cancer hidden behind dense tissue was the impetus for New York State's density-informed law. And I also initiated efforts on the federal level for a national standard for density-informed. But what happened after the New York law went into effect, and we were most excited about it because it was the first state to actually tell women if they have dense breasts. Laws passed previously only provided general information about breast density. So we thought we had hit a home run, and yet the law went into effect, and then my phone begins to ring, and it's patients and their referring doctors who don't understand at all what this notification means. Is she high risk? Should she insist on an MRI? Is density a diagnosis? Why is she being told? Why don't I understand it? And it became quite clear that informed did not mean educated, or that providing this information to a patient in the absence of context would only lead to confusion. So DBI was formed in 2015. It was designed to address these questions. It is medically sourced. This is our medical advisory board. All content on the website reflects the consensus opinion of these experts. Every piece of content on the website has been reviewed by 5 radiological experts and 1 non-rad MD, because we needed to know what they didn't know. And it is formed as a 501c3 nonprofit. We accept no advertising. We are modality and vendor neutral. So as you know, there are now 35 states that currently have some level of density informed required. That encompasses 88% of American women now live in a state that requires some level of informed. There's one active bill right now. I don't think you can see it in Washington, D.C., but of course, even if that gets signed, it's not a state. Well, happy to have it, but it won't add up to the state total. 2019 bill introductions are expected in Mississippi, Georgia, New Mexico, and hopefully Kansas. But inform varies in depth and breadth, and it's so important to understand what your patients are being told and how they may be interpreting that notification. So in some states like Connecticut and New Jersey, the woman is just provided general information about breast density. She's never actually told if she has dense breasts or not. It's just a general notification. In states like New York, the woman is told that she has dense breasts, generically dense. And in other states like North Carolina and Pennsylvania, the woman is actually given her density category. She is told which of the 4 categories her breasts are. So why does that matter? Why do your patients, what do your patients know, and what are their questions? So if a woman receives a general notification and it doesn't tell her she has dense breasts, is this a patient that's going to initiate a conversation about supplemental screening? Probably not. She's not certain that the notification applies to her at all. And on the other extreme, if a density category is supplied, and if it's that category that's the threshold for supplemental screening, and that changes from year to year, that's a phone call that's coming in to an office. And certainly when density categories are provided, objective density measurement, such as that is provided by Volpara, assists with density assessment. So here's a good example in the tri-state area. So this is an area, these 3 states are so geographically close that, of course, it's not unusual at all for a woman to live in New Jersey or Connecticut, but work in Manhattan and get her mammogram on her lunch hour. And as you can see, depending on where she gets that mammogram, she's going to receive 3 very different levels of notification. So in New York and Connecticut, the threshold for the letter, the language that's built into the law that says at this point this letter must go, is the same. So the woman doesn't know why she is or isn't getting the letter. She just does or doesn't get it. So in New York, the threshold is heterogeneously dense or extremely dense, and she's told very clearly your breast tissue is dense. Connecticut has the same threshold, but if your mammogram demonstrates, provides general information, that woman is not told if she has dense breasts. In New Jersey, astoundingly, all women are told, even fatty-breasted women are told in New Jersey that they may have dense breasts. And so, and I was actually speaking at an OBG conference in New Jersey, and an OBG raised his hand and said, I have to tell you, the law is in effect, I don't know how many years now, and not a single patient has ever asked me about breast density. Well, does that shock anybody? No. So it's so important to know. And so, you know, so here are 3 states that have density-informed laws, but if this woman has her mammogram in a center that batch reads, and she never speaks with the radiologist, and her only communication about breast density comes in that lay letter, which is mandated to come maybe 30 days after that mammogram, she has even though she lives in a state with an informed law, has no idea that she has dense breasts. And that's why language matters. So I'm often asked, if we get a federal standard, will that solve the law? So there's two ways we can get a national standard, either through federal legislation, and there is a current bill, or through federal regulation, through an amendment to the MQSA. And so the hope is that one of these two will come to fruition, and will that solve the problem in the variety of notification? And the answer is no, because built into the Mammography Quality Standards Act is the condition that states can keep their own informed language if it's at least as stringent as what's required on the federal level. So the federal regulation might come out, and New York might look at it and say, you know what, we like our language, we meet all the criteria, and we're keeping it. And so there would still be this variation in state law. Where it would matter would be in states where, like Connecticut, maybe where they don't tell you if you're dense, and now they're required to do that. So it won't, though, create a standard language across the country. And so this is really what's happening. The radiologist reads the mammogram, the patient is determined to have dense breasts, the patient receives notification, physician receives the report, everybody's got questions. And so this is why DenseBreast-info was formed, to inform these conversations between patients and particularly their referring community. So these are the tools on the website for healthcare professionals. There's a CME course, Breast Density, Why It Matters, 2 AMA credits. There's a flow chart, who needs more screening, health provider FAQs. It's about 45 questions. It was every question our medical advisory board members had ever been asked about breast density, and they're answered, and they include research citations. There is a risk model tutorial section with live links to the risk models, when to use them, who to use them for, what's the output. There's a patient brochure that's free, and there's a sample at the desk, patient risk checklist, and some additional resources. So let me share two of whatever. Okay, so this is the screening flow chart. So there are no existing guidelines for screening women with dense breasts, and of course that's part of the challenge on the clinical level. So this represents the consensus opinion of our medical experts. We ask them, you know, what are you doing and what would you recommend? And so you can see it starts off, if the woman has at least a 10-year life expectancy, to continue screening. If the woman is determined to be high risk, we move those women over, and we're talking about MRI screening for them. And if she is at least age 40, and if she is dense, to continue on with digital mammo, digital tomo, and to consider screening ultrasound if she accepts the potential for false positives. As I mentioned, we also have the CME course. Website content was so comprehensive that a CME course based on it qualifies for 2 AMA credits. Just a heads up, this course will be free the entire month of December. It's our way of giving back for the holidays. And so when we analyze the responses, some interesting data has come out of it. The 2 questions answered most often incorrectly are on the same topic, and that topic is risk. So even after they've taken the course, the questions on risk are answered wrong 50% of the time. So they don't know what risk models to use. They don't know who qualifies for high risk. Sometimes they're not even having discussions about high risk. And so when we think about personalized screening, and if it's based on a risk assessment, we need to be cognizant of the fact that before we have that conversation with the patient, the person having that conversation needs to be educated about risk models. We also have some narrative responses to the course, and these were interesting too. I did not know how density is used in the risk models. I did not know information on interval cancers. I had no idea dense breasts increased my risk. And as an OB/GYN, I had little to no training in breast imaging. So most of the laws, other than Illinois, all of the laws send the women back to their referring physician with questions about breast density, and that might be an OB/GYN who has not taken a single class in medical school on breast imaging. So there's the whole. And we do recommend then for radiologists to refer the course to their referring community, their own staff and their referring community, so that everyone involved in that conversation about that woman's breasts is on the same information level. We also, another tool just launched in October, we have Let's Talk About Dense Breasts. It is a patient education video series. They're 3 minutes each, 3 titles. What is breast density? Why does density matter? And is my mammogram enough? Dr. Berg and Dr. Regina Hooley narrate the videos. They're available on YouTube, on our Facebook page, and on our website. So perfect little primers, 3 minutes each, perfect to share in the clinical setting. We were recently asked to expand into Europe. We were approached by Athena Vortses from Greece, who asked about educational tools for the European medical provider community. We have since launched that. It is specific for Europe, content specifically developed for Europe. We were the right people to do it. We already had the platform. If you're in Europe and you type in our web address, you will wind up here, and it's for them. And it includes a flow chart for Europe. And as on the U.S. side, where there's a state map, now there's a country map where you can click on the country and find out what the screening process is. In Europe, of course, most countries have a national screening program and or opportunistic screening, and so we detail that for both. So that's our story. So we hope you all use the resource. How some centers are using it, they include it on their website as a resource. If the woman is being told in the lay letter she's dense, they'll include the link there. And there's free downloadable stuff for patients. So it's a valuable tool for both patients and your healthcare community. Thank you.